Hello guys, so the wait is finally over and I'm ready with the record level security in Salesforce. So let's begin. Now this is the last video of the security series, that is record level security, and we have already done with the 3 levels of security, that are organization level security, object level security and field level security. Make sure to check the links down in the description if you haven't checked the organization level security, object level security and field level security. And if you have already watched those videos, then why to wait? Let's begin with record level security. Before starting record level security implementation in your org, you need to answer yourself a question. And that question is, should the users have open access to all the records or a subset? And if the answer is subset, then in that situation, start with record level security implementation. Otherwise, you don't have to really implement record level security because the users have access to all the records of that particular object. So there's no need for record level security. Now let's see that what record level security is. Record level security determines which individual records user can see and edit in each object they have access to in their profile. Okay, so let me take an example to explain you that what record level security is. Let's take an example that you have a bank account object and there are multiple users who have access to that bank account object. Like they can view the records of bank account, they can edit the records of bank account. But what you want is, you want a particular set of records to be available to edit, not all the records. Let me take an example. In that bank account object, you have different types of accounts: savings account, current account, savings minor account, multiple sets of accounts. You want this user should be able to edit the records of savings account only, not of current account or not of savings minor account. Then in that situation, you'll implement record level security. Let me take another example. Same bank account object, current account, savings minor account. There is an executive or there is a user in your org who can edit the records of that particular object and who can see the records of that particular object. But you want that user should only be able to see should only be able to see savings minor and savings accounts, but he can only edit savings minor account. Then in that situation also you'll implement record level security. Now let's see that how we can implement the record level security and how it is divided. Record level security gets implemented by 4 things, that are OWD, role hierarchy, sharing rules and manual sharing. We set different access levels on these 4 things to implement the record level security. But before coming to what these things are, I want to tell you that what different access levels do we have in record level security. So basically we have 3 access levels: public read write, public read only and private. What public read write means is that if we have set it public read write, then in that situation all the users who have access to that object in their profile will be able to view all the records and will be able to edit all the records. If we have set it as public read only, then in that situation all the users will be able to view the records on that particular object if they have its access on their object level. There will be no restriction on viewing the object, but only certain users will be able to edit the records to whom which we have given the access to edit the records. But if you have set it as public read only, then all the users will be able to only view the records, not edit the records. And the third one is private. If you have set the access level as private, then in that situation no user can view or edit the records of that particular object, even if they have access to that particular object in their profile. So this is what different access levels are. And now let me come back to all these 4 points using which we implement record level security. So the first one is OWD. OWD stands for organization wide default, in which we set the baseline level of access for all the users in our organization. And what that baseline level of access means is that if you have set OWD as public read write, then all the users in your organization will be able to read the records and all the users in your organization will be able to edit the records. But if you have set it as public read only, then in that situation all the users in your organization will be able to view the records of that particular object, but will not be able to edit the records of that particular object. And if you have set it as private, if you have set OWD as private, then in that situation no user in your organization will be able to see the records and edit the records of that particular object. Now let's take an example. If you have set OWD as private or public read only, then if no user will be able to edit the records, how will it then only administrator can edit the records. How will that go along? So basically what happens is, your access opens up while going to like different approaches in record level security. In OWD, yes, you set the lowest or baseline level of access which every user should have. But if you want to open up the access to a particular set of records or to a particular subset of records, then you can have then you can do that using role hierarchy or sharing rules or manual sharing. So basically, you set the most restrictive permission that a user should have on that particular object in OWD. And if you want to open the access for a particular set of users, then you can use role hierarchy. And if it doesn't if you can't do it using role hierarchy, then you can go for sharing rules. And if you can't do that using sharing rules, in that situation you can go for manual sharing, using which you'll be able to share a particular record or a particular set of records with a particular set of users with a particular access level. What that means is that, let's say there are 3 users in your, there are 10 users as a whole in your organization, and you want only 4 users to be able to edit those records. So in that situation, first you'll set the OWD as public read only if you want all the users to be able to see those records, and if you want no users should be able to view the records except those 3, then in that situation set the OWD as private. And after setting it as private or public read only, whatever it is, use sharing rules or role hierarchy to share the access of those records with those 3 people, and you can give them public read write access. So basically all the users will be able to see the records, but only these 3 users will be able to edit the records, because these 3 people has the access to edit those records because of sharing rules or because of role hierarchy. And on OWD we have set it as public read only, so that all the users should be able to see those records. So this is how you do this is how you implement record level security. And if you are unable to do it with sharing rules or role hierarchy, then in that situation use manual sharing. You can manually share the records with any of the user of your organization to whom you wanna give the access of that particular record. So this is how we will implement record level security. I'm going to explain each of these topics very deeply in a very descriptive manner, so stay tuned. Before starting the descriptive overview of all these things, I want to tell you, I want you to make sure that the record level security or the object level security both matters when a record's access to a user needs to be evaluated. What I mean to say is that a user's access to that particular record will not only depend on record level security, it will depend on object level security, field level security and record level security as well. So it's not basically determined on only object level security or on only record level security. Both of them or all the 3 of them gets combined to determine that which user will be able to access the record of which particular object. I want to make sure that you understand that very clearly, because it doesn't happen like if you will set OWD as public read write, all the users who do not have the access to that particular object will be able to see those records. No, they can't see that record if they do not have the access on their profile or using a permission set. So basically that's object level security. So if you want the access of this record, you need to have this object's access on your object level security, as well as this record should be available to you using record level security as well. So object level security and record level security both combines to evaluate that whether you will be able to access this record or not, and whichever is most restrictive always wins. Yes, you need to make sure that you understand this very clearly. Object level security and record level security both combines to evaluate a user's level of access on that particular record. First thing. Second thing, whichever is the most restrictive setting wins. So if you have access of access on the object level security of read, and you have access of read write on record level security, in that situation you will only be able to read that particular record. You will not be able to edit the record because you do not have that edit access on your object level security. Okay, let's switch it up. If you have access if you have edit access on your object level, but you don't have edit access on your record level, you only have read access on your record level, then also you will be able to view that record because you do not have edit access on record level security. So whichever the most restrictive setting is from object level security and record level security will win, and that will determine that what access do you have or will you have on that particular object's particular record. Now let's begin with OWD. OWD, organization wide default, or we say it as organization wide sharing settings also, determines the baseline level of access for all records of an object. Yes, so in OWD we set one of the three access levels that I have told you right now only: public read only, public read write, or private. And this is set for all the users in your organization. What that means is that you are setting the baseline level of access which every single user of your organization should have on that particular object's record. So this is what OWD, or organization wide default, is basically used for. It should be most restrictive in record level security, because other record level security implementations only grant additional access, they cannot restrict the access. So you must have understood up till now that OWD is used to set the most restrictive setting which every user should have, or the baseline level of access, or the most restrictive setting which should be applied on that particular object's records. So I mean, you set the most restrictive setting on OWD, then if you want to open up the access for the records of that particular object, then you use the other record level security implementations, that are role hierarchy, sharing rules, and manual sharing. You cannot restrict the access which is given by OWD. What I mean by that is, let's say you have set OWD as public read only. In that situation, all the users of your organization will be able to see the records of that particular object. If you want that you should restrict the access for 2 or 3 users, or even for a single user, in that situation also you will not be able to do that using role hierarchies, sharing rules, or manual sharing, because they basically open up the access. They do not restrict the access provided by the level below them. So basically OWD is the lowest level in that record level security implementation, and whatever we have set on the OWD, whatever permission or access level we have set on the OWD will not be able to hide that access using other level of security implementations. This is what this point is telling you, that you should set the most restrictive setting in the OWD, even if that most restrictive setting is applied for a single user only. Because let's take an example. You have 100 users. You want only single user to not have access to view those records. In that situation also, you'll have to set OWD as private, and you'll use role hierarchy or sharing rules to open up the access for other 99 people or other 99 users in your organization. If you think that you want to only restrict one user, so you should set it public read only, and you'll be able to restrict the access for that particular user using role hierarchy, sharing rules, or manual sharing. That's not true. You cannot do that, because whatever access you have provided through OWD cannot be restricted by the other record level security implementations. Now it's time to understand that how you're going to implement OWD for a particular object. So I have drawn a diagram or a flowchart over here, which you will refer every time when you want to decide a OWD access level for any of the object. So first of all, you need a particular object, because OWD is set for that object, and you have to go through all these 3 questions and answer it in a yes or a no, and determine the access levels. Let me explain it to you how. Ask the first question and determine the user. Then go to second question. If the answer of second question is yes, then the access level will be private. If the answer of second question is no, then go to third question. Third question's answer is yes, then the access level will be public read only. And if the answer is no, then in that situation the access level of OWD or for that particular object will be public read write. So now let's see that what these questions are. So the first question, which is the most restricted user of this object? We have determined, we need to first determine that who is the most restricted user in our whole organization for this object. And most restricted user means that, which user in your organization will have the least access to the records of this particular object. You need to determine that user. Let's say this is X user. We have determined that user. Now we need to go to the next question, that is there ever going to be an instance of this object that this user shouldn't be allowed to see? Is there ever going to be an instance of this object, that means a particular record? Instance of an object is a record. So is there ever going to be an instance of this object that this user shouldn't be allowed to see? If this user is not allowed to see any single record, then in that situation the access level will be private. But if you want like this user should have access to all the records as view, like this user should be able to view all the records, then in that situation the answer of this question is no, and we need to go to third question. And now let's see what the third question is. Is there ever going to be an instance of this object that this user shouldn't be allowed to edit? Okay. Is there ever going to be an instance of this object? Instance of this object is a record. So is there ever going to be a single record, single or multiple? How many? It's like any instance. So is there ever going to be an instance of this object that this user shouldn't be allowed to edit? Yes. If you want that this user should not be able to edit this record, then in that situation the answer will be yes, and the access level of OWD will be on that particular object will be public read only. But if the answer of this question is no, that means no, there is no instance of this object that this user shouldn't be allowed to edit. That means he'll be able to edit all the records of that particular object. Then in that situation the answer will be no, and the OWD settings will be public read write. This is how you implement or determine the OWD for a particular object in an organization. You must be thinking like that, why I have chosen the most restricted user of this object to determine the OWD. So let me explain it to you. If you have chosen the most restricted user, then the access will be restricted for all the users in your organization. And if you'll not choose the most restricted user, then he or she will be able to view the records which he doesn't needs to see, or will be able to edit the records which he doesn't needs to edit. But you must be thinking like, you have restricted the access for this user, but what about the other users who need to edit the records or who need to view the records? What about them? So don't worry, we can always open up the access which is provided by OWD using role hierarchies, sharing rule and manual sharing. So now let's get to the second level, which is role hierarchies. Now let's understand that what role hierarchies are. Role hierarchies are exactly similar to your organization chart. Almost every organization has an organization chart which particularly defines that what different roles are in our organization and which role comes under which role in our organization. So here's a simple example for that. We have CEO and under CEO we have VP of Sales, VP of Marketing, and under VP of Sales we have North America Sales Head and APEX Sales Head. And under North America Sales Head we have Sales Executive, and this like under VP of Marketing we have Marketing Executive, Creative Head, and under Creative Head we have Designers. So these are particular roles in an organization, and we can assign as many users as we want to a particular role, because like there can be many designers, there can be many creative heads, and there can be many sales executives. So we can assign a single role to many users. So basically this same organization chart we implement in Salesforce as a role hierarchy, and the benefit or the use of role hierarchy is managers will always have access to the records of his or her subordinates data. What I mean to say is that let's take an example. There is a bank account object, and sales executive can see all the bank account objects record. In that situation, sales head will automatically get access because his subordinate has the access to that particular data, and VP of sales will also have the access to that data because role hierarchies keeps on moving upside, and whatever data sales executive owns, or whatever data sales executive whatever data we have shared with this sales executive will be shown to manager, which is North America Sales Head, and whichever data North America Sales Head owns, or the users on North America Sales Head role owns or has access to, will be shared with VP of Sales. So this is the basic use of role hierarchies. Manager, like there's A role, there's B role. A is the manager of B role. In that situation, A role will be able to access the data which B role owns or has access to, just because of role hierarchies. So using role hierarchies, we can open up the access to the managers, we can open up the access to the managers of the data owned by or shared with the users below them in the role hierarchy. And the person or the user which is on the topmost role will have access to all the records of whichever object allows the role hierarchy access to all the records. What I mean to say is that CEO will be able to access the data which is owned by VP of marketing or VP of sales, will be able to access the data which is owned by marketing executives, will be able to access the data which is owned by designers, will be able to access the data which is owned by sales executives, just because of role hierarchy, because he's on the top. And creative head will only have access to the data owned by or shared with designers and the data which he owns, not the data owned by marketing executives, because creative head is not on the top of marketing executive. So basically the main use of creating role hierarchies is that manager will always have access to the data owned by or shared with the users below them in the role hierarchy. This is the first use. And now the second use. We sometimes needs to group users together to share access to a particular data. In that situation also role hierarchy is beneficial. So this is what role hierarchy is. It's just roles and the hierarchy of them, and this is a particular use of role hierarchy. Now let's see that where we'll use role hierarchy, or what are the points that you need to consider with role hierarchies. The first and the foremost point that you need to consider with role hierarchy is you need to enable role hierarchies by checking the grant access using hierarchies checkbox for custom objects. What I mean by that is, let's take an example that a bank account is a custom object, and if you want the records which are owned by sales executives to be shared with like North America sales head, then in that situation you need to check the grant access using hierarchies checkbox of bank account object. In that situation only role hierarchy will be enabled. Otherwise the data will not be shared with the managers of bank account object. The next point that you need to consider with role hierarchy is that whatever access this role has on a particular record, the same access will be passed on to its manager. What that means is that if designer is able to view or edit the record of a particular object, then creative head will also be able to edit or view the record and also report the record which is owned by or shared with designers. And what I mean by shared with is, even if he's not the user but he has access to view or edit that particular record, in that situation also creative head will also be able to edit that particular record and view that record. That's it. By the way, grant access using hierarchies is checked for all objects by default, and you can change it only for the custom objects, not for the standard objects. That means if you're using a standard object and you want to disable the role hierarchy, that's not possible. Do you want to see that how OWD set and role hierarchies is created in Salesforce? Yes! Then let's go!
So now let's set OWD for our bank account object. And to set OWD for any of the object, you have to follow these steps. First, go to setup like this. And in the left quick find box, type in sharing settings. And over here you can find the organization wide defaults. Just click on edit. Just go to the object of whose OWD settings you want to set, and as I've told you, there are 3 access levels: private, public read only and public read write. Just set whatever you want. I want to set bank accounts OWD as private because I don't want every user in my organization to see bank account records, and if I want that, I'll set it as public read only. And if I want every user in my organization to edit all the records of bank account object, then I'll set it as public read write. So in my situation, I'm setting it as private. And over here you can see that there's a checkbox called as grant access using hierarchies. This is the object which determines that whether role hierarchy will work on this object's record or not. If you uncheck it, role hierarchies will be disabled for this particular object, and if you check it, role hierarchies will work. And what I mean by role hierarchy will work is that managers will be able to access the records of his or her subordinates. Now just click on save. So this is how you set organization wide defaults or organization wide sharing settings. And now you need to set role hierarchy as well. So for that, again in setup only, you have to type roles. Let's go to roles. Okay, setup roles. As you can see, Salesforce Hulk is the company's name, and under company we have CEO. And let's see who are under CEO: CFO, COO, SVP Customer Service, SVP Human Resources, SVP Sales and Marketing. What you want is I want multiple roles under VP of Marketing. I want designers to be like here is marketing team. I want creative head under VP of Marketing and designers under creative head. So first of all, I'll add a role under VP marketing, and for that I have to click over here, like not anywhere else. If I'll click on add role over here, then the new role will be created under VP international sales, not under VP marketing sales. So I'll add a role over here like this, and I'll click creative head, and this role reports to VP marketing, which is the manager of this role. Save. Okay, now you need to assign the users on this particular role. So you can just simply click assign users to role, and you can select which users you want to set on this role. I want Paul to be on Paul Davidson to be on the creative head role. So I've saved it, and I'll create another role now. Let's go back to roles. Okay, as you can see, creative head and marketing team both are under VP of marketing. I want to create designers under creative head, then I will click on add role over here, and designer reports to creative head. Save, and I'll assign another user as a designer, Mark Edwards. Okay, so now in this situation, whatever records Mark owns or has access to, those records will be accessible by Paul Davidson also, because Paul Davidson is on the above role than Mark, and over here we can see that also. Like designer is Mark and creative head is Paul. So whatever data Mark owns, Paul will be able to see, and whatever data Paul owns or Paul has access to will be VP of marketing will be able to see that, and SVP sales and marketing will be able to see all the data which is owned by the subordinates over here. So this is how you implement role hierarchies, or this is how you basically create a role hierarchy and assign it to different users. If you are if you want multiple users, if you want to assign multiple users on a single role, or if you are creating a new role, a new user, at that point of time you can also assign the roles. Let's say I want to create a new user. I'll click on new user like this, and over here, here's the role, creative head, designer. Whatever role you want to assign to that user, you can simply assign it over here. Otherwise, use the functionality which I have shown you right now only. So this is how we implement initial 2 levels of record level security into Salesforce. Now let's see that what other 2 levels are and how we can implement them.
Now let's start with the third level of record level security implementation, that is sharing rules. Sharing rules are automatic exceptions to the OWD settings for users who does not own the record. Okay, so with OWD we have set it the baseline level of access. With with role hierarchies, we have opened up the access for the managers who can access the records of the users below them in the role hierarchy. But what about those users who are who are not the managers but still need the access? There are multiple situations like that. Let me take an example. Imagine there is a bank account object, and we have there are some users in our organization for which we have restricted the complete access. They cannot see the account, they cannot edit the account. That means we have set the OWD as private, and we have set the role hierarchy as well. But we need some users like managers or the cashiers or the front desk executives to have access to certain type of accounts. Let's take an example. There's a particular set of users who can view all the accounts on that who can view all the records of bank account object, but can edit only savings minor accounts only, account records only. And there are another set of users who can only see savings account records but cannot edit them. And there is another set of users, third set of users, who can see all the records but will be able to edit savings account as well as savings minor account. So what do we do for them? We have restricted the access from OWD, and these users haven't got the access from from the role hierarchy. So there should be some there should be something that we in order to give the access of those records to these set of users. So that thing is sharing rules. In sharing rules, we simply share the records which otherwise will not be able to otherwise the users will not be able to access. Like for example, these there are like multiple there are multiple bank account records. We want to share these account records with this type of user, these accounts with account records with this type of user, these bank account records with this type of user. So in that situation, we can create that automatic exception using a formula or using a condition or using other things with sharing rules. So this is what sharing rules are, and this is where we need to use sharing rules to open up the access, which users do not have if they do not own the record, and which they do not have from the OWD. Okay, next point. Sharing rules should be created only for objects whose OWD is set public read only or private, because sharing rules can only extend the access, they cannot restrict the access. Okay. So we are implementing sharing rules to open up the access for the users who do not have the access to that particular record from the OWD, and they do not also own the record. So in that situation, we can use sharing rules. But what if OWD is public read write? All the users already have access to that record. Why do we need to create a sharing rule for that object then? So you can only create or you should only create sharing rules for the object whose OWD is public read only or private, because for public read write there's already all the users can view and edit the records, so there is no extra level that we can give using sharing rules. But if it is public read only, then we can give extra access of edit to particular set of users, or if it is private, then we can share it to some of users to view and some of users to view and edit both. So we can do that using sharing rules. So you should only create sharing rules for the object whose OWD is private or public read only. Now let's see that how many types of sharing rules do we have. So there are two types of sharing rules based on which records needs to be shared. One, owner based sharing rules. Owner based sharing rules determine that you should share the records which are owned by this particular set of users to this user. This is what is called as owner based sharing rules. When you want the records of this particular user or a particular set of users, with the records which comes under ownership of this particular set of users to be shared with another set of users or with another user, in that situation you will create a owner based sharing rule. Whereas in the second type of sharing rule, which is criteria based sharing rule, you share the records which meet a particular criteria. In our situation, we want to share the records whose type is savings account, or whose type is current account, or whose type is savings minor account. So these comes under criteria based sharing rule. But before creating sharing rules, administrators need to answer three questions, that are: share which records. First of all, administrators need to identify that which records they want to share. So to identify that, they should know that which records they want to share. They want to share the records which are owned by a particular set of users, or they want to share records that meet a particular criteria. And if it is based on owner, then identify who the owner is, or who the owners are. Or if it is based on a particular criteria, then identify or clarify that what the criteria is that you need to implement to filter out those records which you want to share. Then comes the second question, which is with whom the records need to be shared. Okay, you have identified which records needs to be shared. Now with whom you want to share those records? There should be some person, there should be users or group of users with whom you want to share the records. They can be public groups, they can be roles and subordinates with whom you want to share those records. So you need to identify those people to whom you want to give that particular access. And then comes the third question: what kind of access to be provided for the records? You have identified which records needs to be shared. You have identified to whom you want to share those records. Now what you got to do is you need to identify what level of access you want to provide to these users of these records. You want them to view the records only, or you want them to view and edit the records as well. So in that situation, you'll set it as public read only or public read write, whatever the access level is. And once you're done with this, then you can create a sharing rule. Now let us go and create a sharing rule.
Now let's see that how we're going to implement sharing rules in our Salesforce. So as I've told you right now only, that to implement sharing rules, we need to answer three basic questions. First, share which records. Second, with whom you want to share the records. And the third, what access level do you want to give to them. So let's see how we'll implement sharing rules. and I have the answers for all of those questions, but I'll tell you afterwards. And to create sharing rules, you have to go to the same place where you have set the OWD, that is on sharing settings under quick find box in setup, and below you can see the objects for which you can create sharing rules. And let me tell you that you cannot create sharing rules for some objects, basically which like the objects which are detailed in a master tail relationships. So we have bank account sharing rules. We haven't created a single sharing rule up till now, and now we'll click on new, and I'm gonna just name this sharing rule as share savings account. Yeah, and I want to share the records. I want to share the savings account records with particular users. So in that situation, I'll share it based on a criteria. I'll select type, account type equals savings account minor, senior and general. Okay. So this is basically the answer of the first question. Which records you want to share? So I want to share the records whose account type equals to savings account general or savings account minor or savings account senior. And the second question is with whom you want to share these records. So I'm going to select a particular role with which I want to share the records. Like I want to share all of the savings account records with marketing team, like the users who are on the marketing team role. So whichever users are on the marketing team role will get access to the records, like to the bank account records whose account type is savings account general, savings account minor and savings account senior. And they'll only be able to see the records if I'll set the access level as read only. But if I change it to read write, then in that situation they'll also be able to edit those records. So it's totally up to you. Like if you want them to only see the records, then you can set it as read only. If you want them to see as well as edit the records, then in that situation you can set it as read write. Save. Okay. So basically, whenever we create a sharing rule, a sharing recalculation gets started into the background, and what that does is that there are multiple records. They can be millions of records in an organization of a particular object. Not a million, but yeah, hundreds of thousands of records. So like the system needs some time to evaluate that which records access will a particular user will have according to the sharing rule. So it will take some time, but once the recalculation gets done, you'll get an email that your recalculation has been done and your records are shared according to your record level security implementations. So this is the first type of sharing rule, criteria based sharing rule, which I have created. Now I want to create owner based sharing rule as well. So share records of marketing team. I want to share the records which which are owned by marketing team, or or the records which or the records which the users on marketing team role has access to. So in that situation, I'll not select based on criteria, I'll select based on owner. So like you are just creating a sharing rule, but there are two types: based on criteria, that means criteria based sharing rule, and based on record owner, that means owner based sharing rule. And now I want to create a owner based sharing rule. So in this situation, I'll select a role, marketing team, let's say, no, and I want to share it with with a public group or role or roles and subordinates. So if I want to share it with public groups, then there should be some public group created, like North America BD people. I've created this public group, and there are multiple users in this public group with whom I want to share the records which are owned by or has access to by the users in the marketing team. So basically, I'm sharing the records of marketing team with North America business development people. And if you don't know what public groups are and like how to create public groups, there's a link down in the description. Just hit that link. You'll find a video in which I have explained public groups very well. And I want the access level to be read write this time. So in that so I can simply set it as read write and I'll click on save. Oh yes. Perfect. So this is how you create sharing rules in your organization. It depends on you that you want to create owner-based sharing rules or criteria-based sharing rules. But these sharing rules are automatic exceptions. Whenever a record meets a particular criteria or gets under the ownership of this particular user, it will be shared automatically just because of sharing rules.
And yes, don't forget that the upper levels from the OWD cannot restrict the access provided by the OWD. What that means is that if OWD is private or if OWD is public, no, not private, but if OWD is read only and you want to hide the access of of particular records from a user, you can't really do that with sharing rules. That is the only reason why we have read only and read write available while creating sharing rules. So yes, access only opens up. You cannot restrict them using the upper levels, which is role hierarchy, sharing rules and manual sharing. Sharing rules are amazing, but there comes some situation in which we cannot share the records using sharing rules. In that situation, we go for manual sharing. Manual sharing shares the records individually with other users using the share button on the record. As the name signifies, manual sharing, we share the records manually to, if we want to share this record to this user or this user or this user, we have to go to this particular record, and over there at the top there's a button of share or sharing. We need to click on that button, and after that we can share it with whomsoever we want. So this is how we can do manual sharing or share the records manually with other users. But when do we need to use manual sharing? So let's see. Use it when it is not possible to define a consistent group of users who need access. Okay. So with sharing rules, you need a consistent group of access that can be determined prior only and that does not changes frequently. But what happens if we cannot predict the users to whom we need to share the access? In that situation, you need to go for manual sharing. You cannot share the records using sharing rules at that time. And the another situation is it is not possible to share the records any other way. If you cannot share the records any other way, like not using sharing rules, not with role hierarchies, not by any other way, then in that situation manual sharing will work the best. And there's another situation also, like you want to share, let's take an example of that bank account object only. You want to share a bank account record that is current account, and you need to share it to a person who really do not have the access of current account records, but still you want only that current accounts record access to be given to that particular user. So in that situation, you cannot give all the current account records access to that particular user. You need to give that single record only that does not meet the criteria and does not comes under the ownership of the person of whom we can share all the records. So in that situation, you will go for manual sharing, in which you will only share the record which you want to share. You don't have to create automatic exceptions using criterias or owner based sharing rules. But you must be wondering that if we can manually share the records, then the records access will go on to like a complete org, all the users of our org. Because if we'll share the record with a particular user, what if he manually shares it to another person? Don't worry, I'll let you know that. In fact, I'll tell you that who can share the record using manual sharing. There are 4 types of people who can share the records using manual sharing. And the first one is records owner. Obviously, it's his record. He's the owner. He'll do whatever he wants. If you want to share it with anyone, he'll share it. Second type of user is a user in a role above the owner in the role hierarchy. Yes, let's say John owns the record and Paul is in the role above than John's role. Then in that situation, Paul can also share the record because he's above in the role. And then the third type of user granted full access to the record. We can grant full access to that particular record to another users as well. So the users who have full access to that record can share this record with any other user they want. And the fourth one is administrator. Obviously, administrator can share the record. Now these records can be shared with public groups, roles and subordinates, roles, or individual users. And sometimes granting access to a particular record grants access to the records associated to it. When does that happen? When there's a master-tail relation. Let's go and share some records manually.
Now let's share the records manually using the share button on the record of bank account object. So for that, I'll go to bank account and open the list of all the records, and I'll go to this record and I want to share this record. Now let's see where the share button is. Must be on the top. Is it there? No. Is it here? No. Then where it is? Can you see it anywhere? Okay, so let me tell you. The sharing button using which we can manually share the records is not available yet on the Lightning experience. Yes, this is one of the limitation of Lightning experience, that we do not have sharing button available to share the records manually. For that, we need to switch to Salesforce Classic, and we'll switch like this. And I'll go to background object, and I want to share this record, and here the sharing button is. Click on it, add. I want to share it with a particular user, then I'll add Paul Davidson, let's say. And if you want to share it with roles and subordinates, what roles and subordinates means is that role and all the roles below that role will be included in roles and subordinates. Like for example, if I'll select roles and subordinates and add it over here as like marketing team. So whichever users are on the marketing team role, and whichever users are whatever users are there under the roles of marketing team, let's say there is a creative head under marketing team. So in that situation, all the users on creative head will also be included into it, and there is designers under creative head. So in that situation, all the users who are assigned to the designer role will also be added to it. That means this record will be shared with them also. So if you add roles and subordinates, make sure that you want that record to be shared with all the users in that particular role, and also with all the users below that particular role, all the users below that particular roles in that area. So it's basically like all the roles under that role will also gain the access for that particular record. And what I mean by the roles under that role is all the users under that under the roles of marketing team. So just add with whom you want to share the records and set the access level. If you want to set it as read only, then read only, otherwise read write, and click on save. So now you have shared it with Salesforce Hulk, Paul Davidson, and marketing ingredient roles and subordinates. So this is how you manually share the records.
There can be a situation with you in which you do not see the sharing button or the share button on that record. So let me tell you why it's not available over there. Because you have set OWD as public read write. Please, you cannot restrict the access using manual sharing. It's already shared with all the users if you have set the OWD as public read write. Make it public read only or private, then you will see the sharing button on that particular record. That means sharing button is only available when the OWD is public read only or private. You know what? I'm very excited because I have completed the whole data security playlist on my YouTube channel. I've created a video on each and every level: organization level, object level, field level, and now record level. If you haven't checked out all those videos, organization level, field level or object level, then there's a link down in the description. Just hit that link and check those videos out. It will help you. And if you have already seen those videos, then congratulations, you know all the things related to data security in Salesforce. You're gonna rock. But don't forget to hit the subscribe button over here with the notification bell icon, so you'll be the first one to get notified, because in Salesforce Hulk channel I create and upload a video every week all related to Salesforce, and that too for free. So do you need any other reason to get subscribed? No, just hit the subscribe button now. And if you're watching this video on Facebook or LinkedIn, there's a link down in the description. Just hit that link, go to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button to get weekly videos all related to Salesforce with the Salesforce Hulk. So see you next week. Until then, bye, take care.